You with him from the start?
Yes, from day one.
How do you identify with the character Rachel?
You know, she is equally ambitious and opinionated, and I really respect the character.
Are you looking to do other things?
Yes, of course.
Full features?
I would love to do that. You know, we film almost 9 months out of the year, so it's a really small window of a hiatus to be able to do other projects, and in that, I really want to do something purpose-driven.
Just like politicians have words and phrases they repeat ad nauseum under the motto, when people hear something enough times, they start to believe it, Meghan uses certain words for image purposes. Purpose-driven is one of them.
It's really interesting because if you don't listen to all the noise out there and you just focus on living a purpose-driven life.
Also, do you get typecast?
You know, I don't know yet. I certainly
How would you know?
Yeah, how would I? I mean, like, especially because I've been on the show for so long, but I hope that people are able to see something beyond that character specifically.
Meghan's smile fades as she seems to realize that the rhetorical question, how would you know, doesn't portray her acting career in a favorable light. She's quick to make the modification.
How would I mean, like, especially because I've been on the show for so long.
Just in case we couldn't figure out why.
Do you think your looks affect your advocacy?
Well, you know, I think this is
You're
part
not the average American woman, Meghan, admit it.
Well, I would like to think that I
You're not.
am. Okay. Well, here we go. Here's what I would say about that. I think it's very important to shift this idea that, you know, one would say, okay, you're coming on to Larry King, and you're doing politicking, so maybe wear a blazer and play the opposite and make sure you can be taken seriously. My point in all of this is that no matter what you look like, you should be taken seriously.
No matter what you look like. Really?
You go first.
No, no, you go first.
No, you go first.
No, you go first.
No, you go first.
But that's the thing with Meghan and politicians. It's always the easy, feel-good solutions.
You are enough exactly as you are, I think is really important to remind ourselves of.
That is a very important message.
You can't negotiate with reality. In theory, I could show up in a theater, dressed in waders, and expect to be taken seriously. But it doesn't mean people would take me seriously. This is an extreme example, but the principle is relevant, because Meghan doesn't qualify her nice-sounding fairy tale-like claims.
Is feminism still a good... I'm a feminist. I've been a feminist all my life.
That's fantastic.
I don't hear about it. I don't hear it said much as it used to be.
Well, I think it's really, it had
Gloria Steinem in her prime.
Of course. I mean, I think that it's really shifted because at the onset it was getting a bad rap and seemed to be like women burning their bras, and this perception of how it's evolved since then has changed. And last year I think it was sort of a of the moment kind of word that people were trying to define a bit more and to embrace it again in a different way, to not have some sort of negative connotation with it. I don't think there's anything negative about being a feminist.
How did it evolve? How did they embrace it? Did they just decide that it's not a bad thing anymore and expect everybody to follow suit? No pun intended. This demonstrates Meghan's way of thinking. It's more about saying the words than giving tangible specifics. Saying the words means direct access to the buzzword club of politicians, celebrities, and other great people.
Thank you, Meghan.
Thank you, Larry.
This is how Meghan speaks in interviews, but what about speeches? The following is a case study in the surface-level rhetoric that's so popular in politics.
You can be the visionary of your own life.
The authenticity level of that statement is off the charts. By the way, thanks for the guide to get there.
You can charter a path in which what you repeat in your daily acts of service, in kindness, in advocacy, in grace, and in fairness.
Anything else?
That those become the very things that are recognized by the next wave of women, both young and old, who will also choose this moment to join the movement and make our vision for an equitable world reality.
This moment, as in the moment of this event, or right now watching the event. This stuff's confusing. Advocating for causes is a good thing if it's done the right way, with rhetoric that feels relevant to our lives, is specific and isn't divisive. A lot of what Meghan says can come across as divisive because she makes unsubstantiated claims and doesn't properly include all or most demographics in her rhetoric. Quite the contrary, actually.
It's also been a great way for me to connect with people, like Emily, who's right here.
I only know her through Twitter, and I knew she was coming because I saw it on social media.
Stop it, really?
Yes, and she's going on a trip soon to Costa Rica to do some aid work because she said that my UN stuff inspired her. I wrote you a letter. I brought it.
Okay, that is amazing.
It's so good to finally meet you. It's so great to meet you.
That is so cool. That's actually
Isn't that
like
sweet?
seriously
Aw.
using your outreach for good.
This exchange could have easily taken place after the show, but it's important for Meghan that it takes place while the cameras are rolling, because she can use it to create visual proof of how she connects with people. She can then go on to talk about it.
To connect with people.
Well, you know, I feel a really big responsibility.
Meghan's constantly controlling people's perception of her, which is why her statements often end up sounding inauthentic, the exact opposite of her intention.
Given that I didn't know a lot about him, for both of us, it was just a really authentic and organic way to get to know each other.
Being ambitious is one of Meghan's core traits, or what she repeats the most. So much so that she projects her ambitions onto her character from Suits, Rachel.
Now you guys may recognize Meghan from USA's Suits. You play Rachel. Tell us a little bit about your role.
Rachel is the paralegal at the firm, but she's sassy and intelligent, incredibly confident, has this encyclopedic knowledge of the law, and is incredibly valued at the firm.
The conjunction but has a paratactic function. Paratactics means placing two things side by side, linking two sentences. This conjunction minimizes or negates that which preceded it. Here, she's using the parataxis to linguistically contrast being a paralegal to being confident and intelligent. This contrast is unexpected, as there is no contrast. You can be an intelligent and confident paralegal.
Oh, are you a lawyer then?
No, I'm a paralegal. No, she's trying to be a lawyer, and I hope that she can be that at some point, but for now, no, the lowly paralegal.
Suggesting that Rachel doesn't quite suit her ambitions.
I don't cry as much as Rachel does. I don't think anyone does. Oh, gosh.
And I really respect the character.
How do you cry? Because you're an excellent, excellent crier.
Thank you very much.
Considering many of the scenes in the heartwarming docuseries, being a fantastic crier isn't exactly a compliment.
It's so easy for us to get distracted and to lose interest, but they said, don't give it 5 minutes if you're not going to give it 5 years. I know 5 years sounds like a long time. Oh my gosh. But it's really not.
Which is interesting, considering that Meghan did give the royal family 5 minutes, but not 5 years. Empowerment advice sounds good, but it doesn't always mean the speaker believes it.
Yeah, so last February, actually, I went to Rwanda, which was incredible because Rwanda has the highest percentage of female political participants of any other country in the world.
With all the problems Rwanda has had, how do you explain this seemingly contradiction?
I think it's really, truly, and especially being there on the ground, it was so interesting to see that. And in that, yes, so many of the men were lost in the genocide.
It's very revealing or damaging that Meghan, despite this admission, still continues to talk about it in new management terms like empowering and benchmark.
So it gave women an opportunity to either succumb to that or to then find some strength and then mobilize in a way that was really empowering. And I think that's specifically what they've done, which is a great benchmark for what women all over the world could be doing.
This shows us that she puts her ideology, or what she's rehearsed more like it, above this tragic history. That all that matters is what's empowering to the demographic she claims to advocate for.
Many young women and young boys, but specifically young women, aren't able to go to school because they're spending hours a day walking to get water for their families.
It's interesting that the demographic she doesn't advocate for is mentioned as an irrelevant side note.
And young boys, but
what is it like going on one of those trips? Because I feel like we see the photos,
yeah.
But what is the experience actually like?
There's a short pause, a transition relevance plays, where Meghan could have started answering, but she doesn't.
What is it like going on one of those trips? Because I feel like we see...
When Meghan finally answers, she has little to say, which explains the pause.
Well, my trip to Rwanda last year was very different because it was just, it was primarily at Parliament. I did go to a refugee camp, though, which was my first experience of that. And I think it's being there is a very different experience than what you see on TV. Of course, it impacts you so much so that, you know, this year I was back in Rwanda. I feel very connected to that country now.
This expression says it all. By the hesitation and lack of details, she's implying that she didn't do a lot. This is further evidenced by the inclusion of did,
I did go to
and also the vowel stress on this verb. Secondly, she says it impacts you.
Of course, it impacts you so much.
This impersonal pronoun points to a general rather than a personal experience.
You know, the biggest takeaway for me, especially in my industry, is the contrast of the things that, you know, it just puts a different level of perspective on the things we take for granted and the things that we complain about, right? You know, the biggest takeaway for me, especially in my industry, is.
And when she can't or doesn't want to detail this contrast, she uses the adverb just, which has a simplifying function, as a way of ending this part of her response as quickly as possible.
Is the contrast of the things that, you know, it just puts a different level of perspective on the things.
With right,
we take for granted and the things that we complain about, right?
She's asking rather than stating, underlining the uncertainty and vagueness that dominate this response as a whole.
Like if I'm going to have my name attached to it or I'm going to do it, I really get very hands-on, which is exhausting, but...
She says it's exhausting, but we never hear what's exhausting about getting overpaid to travel to another country and meet people.
It just puts a different level of perspective on the things we take for granted and the things that we complain about, right?
So has Meghan learned from this experience? What does she complain about? Surely it can't be about insignificant things, can it?
You know, unlike what you see in the movies, there's no class on how to speak, how to cross your legs, how to be royal. I need to learn these 30 hymns for church.
Would she honestly have been interested in having other people teach her how to speak? I'm not totally convinced about that.
In your engagement interview,
orchestrated reality show. Yeah.
Prince Harry, Meghan Markle, thank you both very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Orchestrated reality show. Yeah.